Hello! So today PMDG have released updates to all of their 737 aircraft in Flight Simulator to add the EFB or the flight tablet to the aircraft. We're going to have a look at it. If you've been living under a rock for the last 24 hours, you'll no doubt know that all of the real 737 pilots have been busy releasing updates about this, so I didn't want to miss out. I'm going to go and have a nose around it myself and find out how it works. I thought we might go and program a route in and see how we use the functionality of the tablet in a real world application. Okay, so if we jump inside the aeroplane, you can see, oh, where's the tablet? Don't worry, I've already looked at this. I know exactly what's going on. If you weren't aware, the 737 family of aircraft have some options in the FMC. So if you hold the menu button down, even when the aircraft's cold and dark, the FMC will come to life. And you can go into the PMDG setup menu. You can go then into the aircraft subsection and then into the equipment subsection. And you can see there are 17 pages of options. So what this actually relates to is each official livery available from the PMDG download operations center actually replicates a real world aircraft, and it doesn't just replicate what it looks like on the outside, it replicates the hardware options that were chosen at the factory on the inside, so you can swap out the exact model of MCP, for example, or the exact fit out of instruments that are on the center pedestal. So all of that happens inside these pages. Yeah, like I said, there's 17 pages of this stuff. But if we go to the 16th page, I think it is. Yep, here we go, page 16 of 17. There's the flight tablet. So we can say yes to the flight tablet. And as soon as we do that, if we look around, there it is. So there's our magical new toy that we can go play with. There's two options inside it and a home button. So the electronic flight bag allows you to request data from Simbrief at last, and it gives you a live view of the map as well, so we can zoom in on that. So we're going to fly, or we're going to plan a route at least, from Stansted over to Rotterdam, just to do an example of how you might do all of this. So before we get any further, let's jump over to Simbrief, because that's what this part of the tablet is really all about. And it's worth pointing out this is not wired to the FMC at all. Yeah? Although you can request data from the aircraft, and we'll see that in a moment, it's not wired directly across, which is accurate to the real world. You shouldn't be able to do that anyway. Okay, so we're going to go from Stansted to Rotterdam. You can see I've penciled this in little nav map. We'll have a little look at that as well along the way. But we're going to open the Simbrief website, and we're going to do a new flight. So we'll put in our airline ICAO code, so we'll go Virtual Flight Online's ICAO code and a flight number, and we're departing from Echo Golf Sierra Sierra, which is Stansted, and we're going to Echo Hotel Romeo Delta, which is Rotterdam. We're going to choose our aircraft type, which will be B738. I've got the 737-800. So if we look through the list, where is B738? There it is. And that will calculate us a flight plan. And we can scroll down and have a look at it. And you can look in, one thing that might be of interest is to look in fuel planning. And so it's got reserves set to auto. I think by default, Navigraph will give it no reserves. So it's going to do the Clacton 2E standard instrument departure to the Clacton waypoint, or VOR. Then it will go to route P44 to Ratlow, M197 to Redfut, and then the red F3R standard terminal arrival route into Rotterdam. So it's saying that's all valid, so we can go straight up to the top and we can just generate the flight plan. Okay, so that gives us a summary in Simbrief, of the flight plan, of the operational flight plan, and a nice little graph. You can view this as a PDF, which might be useful to you if you're learning how to read the contents of an operational flight plan, because you will see it in this format inside the aircraft. The bit that we're interested in is the routing, so it's that bit there. But I'll show you how to use this in the airplane in a moment. So before you can use any of these nice tricks from Simbrief or from Navigraph for the charts, you're going to need to go into the settings or general preferences in the tablet. and fill in your Simbrief alias, that's your username for Simbrief, and then you're going to need to scroll down and authenticate with Navigraph, which I've already done. All it does is pops up a 2D barcode, which you can then use with your phone to authenticate, and it suddenly enables itself and it's all good to go. And it remembers that authentication. So, having connected things up, we can come back into the home screen of the tablet in the, what do they call this app again? The electronic flight bag app, and you can request your data from Simbrief. And up pops the flight, and there's our routing information, yeah? We can also go and get the departure weather, which will give us a METAR readout, so we can see 230 degrees 5 knots is the wind on the ground at Stansted, which is good to know. We can see the operational flight plan. So as I mentioned, this is the same as the PDF you might generate. So it's that I can't even talk today. It's the paperwork that the flight crew take on board. If you've ever seen them walking through the airport carrying a bundle of paperwork, there's the bit we're really interested in right there, the routing information. So we can scroll down a bit further just to get that fairly central, because we'll be using this in a moment. We can go and look at Navigraph charts. Now we've got it wired up. Actually, before we do that, let's go to the home page. And we can see this map. By default, you can see it's quite slow and clunky. It's a Google map, and it's centering on us actually. So it's a Google map, and it's not very clever. If you have got Navigraph, you can switch maps to Navigraph. It's worth noting you can switch between day and night mode on here, and you can switch between the view you want. So you could have like the IFR low, which is probably most useful to us. And as you zoom in, look how much smoother it is at rendering. It's still going to center on us though, so it's really just for tracking. It's not really for proper navigation purposes. You would still use Navigraph alongside for that. Okay, I think, or we may be able to unlock it. No, I think that just stops it from scrolling, so it will follow us regardless. We can switch back to Google if we want to. So we'll leave that there as it is. So let's go and look at Navigraph charts. So if we go and say we are interested in the departure charts and the SIDS, and if we go and look at that departure, we want the Clacton 2E. We can see that as well in here, by the way. Notice it's remembered. If we go and look at the operational flight plan, it's remembered where we had scrolled to. So we're looking for the Clacton 2E. So if we scroll down the SIDS, where's Clacton 2E? There it is. It's an RNAV departure, or RNP, sorry, departure. So then you can see the diagram of your departure, which is very useful. And you notice you can also pin things, so we can pin that. So rather than having to scroll around to pull things up, we can have a series of pinned charts that we want to refer to during the flight, and we can pin as many as we like, as we need to. So you can spend a few minutes arranging your charts just so for inside the aeroplane. Okay, so that's pretty much what the EFB tool does. The more interesting tool to me is the performance tool. So if you come into here, we can go to takeoff, landing, or landing en route. So we'll do takeoff. You can import the data from your operational flight plan. And again, notice the operational flight plan will not deal in terms of the runway you're taking off from. ATC will tell you that typically. Yeah. So we'll say runway 22, and then that uses its own database to pick out the data to say, oh, we know how big that runway is all of a sudden. That's really useful. So the aircraft information we can get from the operational flight plan. Notice it didn't get the center of gravity, but we can get that from the aircraft. Yeah, so notice we got a disparity here. We've actually got far more fuel in the aircraft than we have in the flight plan, so that's a job then to defuel the aircraft if you've just loaded it in as standard into the simulator, if you didn't set anything up on the way in. So we can also import the weather, and having done that, we can calculate and get our V-speeds and our climb parameters. Yeah, so flaps 5, acceleration height 1500 feet, and all the rest of it. So you will no doubt be aware, if you've seen the 737s before, the FMC can calculate all of that stuff for you as well. It shouldn't be doing that. In the real world, they would have this calculator and they would transfer the data across. So in the OFP as well, they would have the load sheet, which is a bit further down, I think. So if we scroll down, we got the flight log, I can never remember how far down this is, but there should be a load sheet in here as well. There's the ICO flight plan, but I'm not going to get too tied up into that. You've got the fuel data there. Anyway, so let's go and run through setting the airplane up and using the OFP. Remember, all we're really interested in for this basic setup is the... Oh, we can scroll this with the left mouse button. I didn't realize that before. That's really useful. All we're interested in is this routing information. Okay, so let's go and do the basics of getting the 737 up and running. So I'm just going to get my own checklist ready alongside so I can run through it neatly and tidily with you. So the first thing we do in the 737 is go and turn the battery on and close the switch on the battery. And then we go down to the tablet, we go into FS Actions, Ground Services, and we request ground power. So then if we look outside, we will see the tractor has arrived, the door is opened, a cable will appear. There we go, with the power cable, and then when it's connected, the ground power will change to say release, meaning to unplug it when we're finished. There we are, we're done. So we can go back overhead, and we can flick down on the ground power switch, and the airplane switches over from just batteries to using the ground power. So then we can jump overhead. We could turn the dome lights on if we need to. We don't need to, it's a nice bright day. We switch the IRS system over to navigation mode. We wait for this to say align on both. We switch the display selector to heading status, and it will come up saying 0 because I've got it on instant alignment, I think, in the FMC where I've set it in the past to save me some time on group flights. Okay, so then further down we go and arm the emergency light switches in the middle and close them, or close the cover on it. We go and do the window heats and the probe heats, and then we can go and program the flight plan. So we go to the menu button, we go to the FMC, we go to position initialization, we go next page, we pick up GPS location into the scratch pad, we go previous page, we drop that into the set IRS position, we set our reference airport, which is Stansted, Echo Golf Sierra Sierra, we go forward to the route page, and we Echo Golf Sierra Sierra has been carried over in the scratch pad for us. Then we can put in our destination, Echo Hotel Romeo Delta is Rotterdam, drop it in. We can put in the runway we're leaving. So notice we're having to duplicate what we saw in the tablet. We can press Control 9 to see the tablet, by the way. So if we come back over here and go to the EFB and look at the data here, let's come back up. We wanted to look at the, where is it? The routing. I've gone too far, haven't I? There it is. So this is the routing we're most interested in. So we press Control 3 to come back over here. Now on the route page in the FMC, we go to the next page to put the airways in. So if we go back to the tablet, oh, the sim has frozen on us, I think. Oh no, it hasn't. We are most interested in the first waypoint after the SID. You don't put the SID into the routing page, so we're going to go to Clacton. Yeah? So we go back over here to the tablet and we put CLN in directly on the right hand side of the routing page. So this is where you put your airways, this is where you put your waypoints. We will be replacing that with a SID in a moment. So Control 9 brings us back to the tablet, so we put Clacton in, then we're doing P44 to Ratlow. So back then to the tablet, P44 to Ratslow. And then if we go back over to the tablet, after that we go M197 to Redfer. So M197 to Redfer. So if you're thinking, oh, wouldn't it be nice if the tablet copied this across? Well, it doesn't in the real thing. So they're replicating the real workload of a real flight crew. So after Redfay you've got the standard terminal arrival route into the airport, so we don't program that onto the route page. So our basic programming of the route is done and we can activate it and execute that change. We can go on to the performance initialization now. So we can put in our cruise altitude, and again we can go look at the operational flight plan. So let's just cheat a little bit here and go back over to Simbrief and see what it says. So we're flying at 23,000 feet and our cost index will be 61 today. So 23,000 feet is the flight level 230, so we can drop that in. And yeah, this is where we get some shortcuts that don't actually exist in the real aircraft. So we can just click next to 0 fuel weight and it will drop it in for us. We can put in resources, and I think because I didn't program any resources, we presume 0. So the reason I say that is if we come down here and look at the... has it got the data for us? Oh yeah, the load sheet. So we've got block fuel, there's no mention of any resources, and when I programmed the flight I checked in Simbrief, it will default to 0 reserve fuel unless you tell it otherwise. So cost index we said was 61, and we can execute those changes, and then we can look at the N1 limits, and again you can refer to this on the OFP as well and go to takeoff. So we knew it was flaps 5 on takeoff, and again we've got this calculator, but if you want to do this by the book you can go and look at the performance calculation. So we come back out of here, we look in the performance tool, and we can see that we've got the centre of gravity is in here at 24.86. So let's see if that agrees with it. It might not, because remember we've got more fuel than the flight plan. Yeah, the centre of gravity has moved. So you need to be aware of that, and you need to do more work than I have done in this example. You need to get that fuel out of the aircraft and set it to the correct fuel that's in the flight plan, and then all the numbers will match up. So I'm just going to go and pre-calculate these, but the story we're really telling here is that you need to make this agree with the tablet, and if it doesn't, you've got an issue going on. And in the issue I've got here, why the numbers are not matching, is because I've actually got more fuel on board than the flight plan needs. Yeah, so I'm flying with more fuel than I need, which is expensive because you're just carrying extra weight for no reason. Okay, so you can see how that would work and how you would get the airplane ready to go with everything we're doing. Obviously I'm not going to take it all the way through, but I thought it might be interesting for you to see some other asides to this, really to do with Simbrief and Navigraph and all the rest of it. So the latest version of Little Nav Map lets you obviously come in here, and you can pull in from Simbrief here as well. So open flight plan from Simbrief, again using my username. It's gone and fetched it, create the flight plan. Don't save what I've already done, and there we go. So it's put the alternate in, it's got the flight plan all the way through. So the only things really missing from this are the approach and the immediate departure. Oh, so no, it's already got the SID. So it's just the approach that's missing into the airport, and that's a good thing to know about, that Simbrief doesn't give you the exact approach. So when you come back into the airplane and you go into your departure and arrival, if we look in departure, we're leaving on runway 22. We haven't actually chosen that Clacton 2E yet, so it won't have come through from Simbrief. You know, it wasn't in the details, even if we had loaded it directly in. So then go to the departure arrival page again, and we do know what runway we're coming in on at the destination, don't we? So it's on the route, look, runway 24 at Rotterdam. So we do know as well we're doing the red for 3R standard terminal arrival route. So if we go to red for 3R, and it was runway 24. So we've got ILS on runway 24, which is great, and we can execute that. So then having the trick here is, having done the routing and the SID and the star, we should have less to clean up on the flight plan once we look in the legs. So if we flick through now, notice there is no discontinuity now between the SID and the routing, because they matched up at the waypoints along the way. We got to Clacton, remember? So there is a discontinuity later in the route. But you need to be careful though about if you ever see the word vector or manual, and that you actually do what it says. Don't just delete it. So vector means you wait for vectors, manual means you're manually flying, and then you would do a direct to at the appropriate point, I guess. So yeah, there's a lot more to take in about if you want to use this in the way a real crew would do. You would rely on its data, and you would be reading and interpreting the operational flight plan to find out the load sheet data, how much fuel you should be carrying, and so on and so forth. So then in the PMDG you can't just mess around with the fuel in the menu in the simulator. It won't obey it. You have to go in via the menu screen, and go to FS Actions and fuel it in here and put the appropriate amount of fuel in. So obviously I change this now, it's going to throw all of my calculations out, and the aeroplane will actually complain at me about it. So when I first came in, that should have been the first thing I did. So I'm just making you aware of the various facets that if you're getting closer to doing it the way the real crews do it, there's an order to doing these things. So you get the payload sorted out first, check out the load sheet, then you can start planning your route and getting on the way. But yeah, I think the EFB is very good. A lot of people have complained it hasn't got much in it yet, and yeah, that's true, but they have actually replicated the essential tools that a real crew would have, and nothing more than that. So I think that's the takeaway. If you want to fly it like a real crew, you use the tools you've got, and you make do with them. And yes, there will be some manual work, but that's the interesting bit for me, is seeing how those systems work and how you can interact with them to configure the aeroplane. Okay, I'm going to leave it there for today. We'll do another full flight another day. So I'll see you again soon.